but an easier way might also be to utilize that chat button and ask a question down there. Okay, in today's discussion, we are really super jazzed to bring Gerald back, our member services attendant, who now is joined by coworker Robert Ginsbach, who is supervisor and technician in our aquatics department. And after our racism talk part 1 2 weeks ago, Rob gave Gerald a list of questions such as, what can I do as a white male to lend my voice to address and fight racism? And Rob has suffered some personal loss due to racism, and every day he hears stories from his roommate about how people treat her differently because of the color of her skin. So when Rob submitted a list of questions to Gerald, we thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect platform for our second discussion. So together in this safe environment, Gerald will facilitate a deeper understanding of what it means to be Black or biracial in today's America. And we'll continue this discussion to learn about bias, and most importantly, what we can do to mitigate its influence. So without further ado, we will unmute Gerald and Rob, and we will let this conversation get started.
Hello, hello, can y'all hear us?
Are we coming through?
That's what I'm talking about right there. All right, hello everybody, I'm Gerald, back again. I work member services like Jamie said, and this is Rob. I'll let him introduce himself, give him a little explanation on his history, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Gerald. I want to also thank the Y. I identify as a young white male. I have family and friends of color, and a couple of years ago, we lost my brother, Jose, thank you, to a racist security guard who identified him as a person of color and took his life. So I'm here to lend my voice to help speak out against racism and be a representative for people of color. So that's where I'm coming from, and I appreciate this opportunity.
And really this conversation today, y'all, is really to give you a little bit of insight, seeing a discussion between a person who identifies as Black and a person who identifies as white, who also identifies as an ally. You know, maybe this is a discussion that maybe needs to be seen first so you can take it yourself and go out in the world and maybe do it yourself. But I'm excited today, see what questions Rob has for me, what questions y'all have for us. And we're both gonna attack it from an educated realm, you know, try to educate everybody else so you can go out in the world and do the same exact thing. So let's get started, Rob, what we got?
All right. So last time we had the initial conversation or introductory question about racism, and now we want to go to the next step. How can I get involved? What's a good resource? You know, what's a good starting point?
I like that, I love that, I love that. So first one, how can you get involved? Obviously you're doing it right now. You're taking actionable steps, you're out here trying to educate other individuals, and also you took the chance going out on a limb and actually trying to reach out to me and educate yourself. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces, is you're having the initiative to go out and educate yourself. Resources, there's an immense amount of resources. We got books. You've actually given me a book as a resource. Ta-Nehisi Coates, I gave it last time, Between the World and Me, is a fantastic book that dives into actually talking about colorblindness, which is a big issue nowadays, which a lot of my white allies kind of struggle with, is the colorblindness aspect. And you have a plethora of websites that you can go to. I could just list them off if I have time, but yeah. I know this would be specific resources, but you already know you're educated enough. So there's social media is also a huge resource. As convoluted as information gets on social media, there is reputable sources that you can find through social media. So I definitely recommend doing that, because social media is more aligned towards my age group. You know, we're a little bit older, or you're a little bit older than me in age, but you know, that still can correlate. Information can still be passed on through realms like that. So those are just, you know, maybe a few different resources you can use.
So just to hear you correctly, I need to go online, type something in, and
keep going.
Keep going. Try myself.
You find a term. If a term pops up, you see a term on the news, go look at it.
Okay.
So actions like that. That's a quick action. So you see last week I talked about, or 2 weeks ago I talked about implicit bias. Some people may not have known what that is. If you hear the term, go look it up on the internet. Simple, just like that. I think that's just self-education and the efficacy to go do that.
Awesome. So the Rogue Valley or other places, like I grew up in a small rural logging town of 1,500 and conservative, primarily white. How can you have an open conversation to address racism with people who might have that implicit bias?
How can you have it?
Like, it's going to be a difficult conversation.
Absolutely.
But do you have a starting point that someone might be able to? I mean, it's about education.
Yes, exactly.
And
I'm trying to attack the answer of that. I'm trying to attack the answer of that a little bit more in an educated realm. I would say, just as I said, attacking implicit bias last week, you can't do it yourself. So you would have to be the individual to notice the action and point it out to that person, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So in an area like you're explaining, it's a rural town, conservative, we'll call it whatever.
Right.
When you see somebody acting out of what you align is with your character values, especially when it has to do with racism, having the confidence to go and step up and say, that's not okay what you're doing, in itself is just an action that we align with an outcome, somebody being an outcome. So I think just having the confidence within yourself to, when you notice something that you do not agree with, just at the core of itself, when it has to do with personal, or just the lives of somebody else mattering, you have a duty, just like, because you're certified in CPR.
Yep. We
have the duty to, when somebody is drowning or somebody is asphyxiating, we have to go help them. I think it's your duty as a good standing human being to speak out against things like that.
So on that point, if I fail to act, it's negligence on me and my job. Would you agree that it's negligence on behalf of the people of color that you're advocating for having that conversation?
I think
to a degree.
Yeah, I think to a degree that, and also it's negligence on yourself, because if you do identify at any time as an ally, when you're around people of color, and then when you get in groups where you're comfortable, you're around people that look like you, that sound like you, when you choose to just go along with the status quo and just being quiet, you're doing yourself a disservice at the end of the day.
And then nothing happens from that.
Exactly. Then you don't get to learn from the situation. No matter what the backlash is from the person that you have something to say to, it's the fact that you said something. At the end of the day, they could be as angry as they want to be. Why are you speaking out? Why you should respect your own race? The things you get said. Just not saying anything at all is worse than saying anything. I think that's simple, like simply said, right?
Yeah.
I think we understand that.
So I've heard people of color talk about, for lack of a better term, black training. And by this, I mean, if you get pulled over by a police officer, hands at 10-2, slow, deliberate movements. Because people of color are most often arrested, shot, killed. I mean, we see it in the news every day. Have you had black training, for lack of a better term? Or somebody's spoken to you or seen it,
Yeah, absolutely, I can. Let me check too. Are y'all hearing us fine too? All good? A little bit Charlotte for you? How about now? Thumbs up, Charlotte? You got me? All right, perfect. So as Rob just said, have I ever had black training is, the quote that he kind of used for it. In instances like when I get pulled over or when I go certain places. And specifically for myself, I can speak and say, yes, I have, 100%. When I get pulled over by police, it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I have a, what is I'm trying to say? I have a responsibility almost for my own life to have this form of almost extra respect for a person in that type of role. Does that mean that makes sense?
You know the inherent danger of an interaction.
Exactly.
So you are acting on your behalf to protect yourself.
Exactly.
And not become another statistic.
100%. Exactly. Right on the point too. And there's things that I like. For instance, turning on the overhead light in my car. I was always, of the understanding that may get me pulled over by the cops. So I always just kept the overhead light on. Something like that. Yeah, that's
more visible.
Literally. Yeah. So that's something that I've always learned myself, just I've always been afraid to turn even the low overhead light on if I'm driving on the highway.
Right.
So that's immediately you get pulled over for that. So that's just an instance of something, that can align with Black training, quote unquote.
So I have here, you've seen in the news, Confederate flags are being taken down, monuments are being destroyed. And I was curious if there is, destruction of property is bad,
Yeah.
but is there a value of that history in seeing that?
Yeah. Or
is it more beneficial to take those down and show progress towards the bigger cause?
Okay. I love that you asked that question too. I think it's beneficial to take them out of a public space where they're in a spot where they're almost glorified, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they put these statues in downtown areas, these metropolitan areas. What we should do with them is take them down and put in the American history museums, the Smithsonian, to truly teach the history of where our country has came from. This is a Confederate general. When you go to the museum, you should be able to see this is a Confederate general. He owned slaves. He's killed this many people in this country over a war for the country. Things like that. Or, just have representation of truly knowing who these people are. I think taking them down, we're pulling them down, trying to get them out of sight right now because we're angry.
Right.
I'm saying we because I'm talking about those who are just upset. We're irritated. I'm not just speaking for Black people. But I think we, as the people who are trying to make change in this world, we're tired of it. So we're trying to get them pulled down and throw them in the closest rivers or cases. But I think we can learn more from our past than we're giving ourselves credit for. We're trying to just get rid of it, hide it. But exactly, we should learn from that past, understand that it was a part of it,
right,
and know that past shapes what we are today. So I think we should take them and put them in museums. That's my answer, I guess, for you.
If they were not taken down, I think a good caveat would be putting a plaque very visible and explain that history.
Yes.
So maybe it's not in the museum, but you're still explaining it like it was.
100%, yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that too. I can agree with that too.
Piggybacking on that, protests, rioters, destruction of property, do you have any thoughts on that? Or because it seems that Black Lives Matter is what we're focused on, but then some individuals choose to go beyond what the cause is, and it's viewed negatively and maybe not constructive to the entire picture.
Okay, so I love that you asked that one too, because that's a big thing that's been spun out within the media realm that we've seen. News is these rioters are out here doing this. These rioters, it's always known as a riot. Protests are getting wrong.
You are no longer an advocate for that cause. You are something else now.
Exactly.
And that's viewed.
That's the perception.
Right. Yeah.
But here's kind of my understanding of the riot. So I'll put it out in terms of this. Black people were considered property for 400 years. We were considered property and our lives didn't matter for those 400 years. And still, to some people to this day, our lives still don't matter. So when you see people going out and rioting, the same exact anger that they're displaying or the same exact destruction that they're displaying is how they feel about their own lives. So I wouldn't go out and riot myself.
Right.
Because I don't feel that violence and destruction is the way for change, just like Martin Luther King didn't feel like that way was. But also, there's another side of me where I'm angry. I've had this sense of anger my whole life. I've been angry at the world around me. And when you see these people go out and destroy this stuff, and it's almost reignited because you're telling us that this property still matters more than the people that they're out here rioting for.
That's a good point.
So I have an understanding as to why people are doing it,
right? And
I don't blame them. Just like I can't blame a racist because that's all they know. These people are out here rioting because that's all they really know to do. They don't see peaceful protests as a way for change.
And I like that.
Right. So they're going out here and they're really reflecting their own emotions out on the world. They're going to destroy stuff because they feel like their life has been destroyed. I don't feel like my life is in a comfortable space. So I can understand it, but also I don't advocate for going out and rioting. I wouldn't recommend going out and rioting. There's adverse consequences that can come back to you, especially if you're dark skinned.
Right.
And we see there is a lot of white individuals doing this writing too, which
Sure,
gets spun
yeah.
in the media. So it's a, you know, it's a double-edged sword in certain forms, but I can understand why people are doing it, but I don't advocate for it.
Is there a way to use that anger that you're feeling and maybe spin it in a positive way, not destruction of property, but focusing that energy elsewhere? Or
Yes.
I mean, not for all individuals. Some individuals are going to be angry and want to riot or, you know, do these things.
100%.
But is there a redirect that we can kind of focus somehow?
Yes, yes. And I think it's, it has to be a focused anger. You know, this writing is it's just a wild anger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go out and destroy something, but it has to be an attractive anger, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
people get attracted, and it's almost fun as passion for
Right.
people, right? Because I'm not taking any more BS. Like, I'm unapologetically Black now. I'm Black skinned. Wherever I go, I'm Black regardless. I'm going to represent my people. So that type of mindset, I feel like, attracts people,
I do like that.
right? So when you're out here,
This is who you are.
Exactly, this is who I am.
I'm gonna be a positive influence.
but when you have people out here rioting and you're angry, you know, I'm not going to mess with any other races because I don't know how they're going to be. You know, having the nihilist, the negative mindset every time you approach a situation with that type of anger,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get the results you need. So I think it has to be a controlled, a focused aggression, more so maybe the word instead of anger, because anger leads to bad decisions. But you have to be aggressive about this now, because for so long, like Black and brown skinned people may have been, a good portion of them in my age range too, have been passive.
Yeah.
And living our life, we felt like we didn't have enough experience, enough rank to speak up. And at this point, I see more people being more outspoken, and they're upset because of the way our lives have been going. I'm only 24 years old, but for 24 years of my life, it hasn't really changed from 60 years before that when I didn't even live. So, you know, we had some adjustments, right? But systemically, we haven't seen a lot of change. So that type of passion and aggression towards the cause can create more purpose and more belongingness for other people. But when you're this nihilist, you're trying to destroy, I want to get rid of the system, down with the system, it kind of puts people off. So
Right.
I think it's kind of looking at how your passion can be reformed, if that makes sense.
Yes. And me as a person of color, also seeing, or young male as well, seeing what this is doing, the energy that's being put towards, like, I've seen, I mean, it's always on the news, you know, somebody else has died or been arrested,
Yes.
rightfully or wrongfully, but it happens. And just that constant, like, stream of info coming to me, it's like, I think there's a problem with this. I too need to then, you know, use that anger and hatred and put it towards a good cause.
I love it. I love that for a while. I do. That's awesome.
So there's this term called white saviorism, and I was wondering if you could explain that versus being an ally, and if you understand what I'm asking.
That term I don't understand. So if you could explain it to them,
Sure.
so we can.
So the best way I can put this is you are a white person and you go to Africa and you save all the little Black children in a small village. You are then a white savior. You take photos, you post them to your social media, and what you're doing is you're saying, I am a white person who's saving the Black community because they are not able to do it themselves, versus a white ally who is not doing it. It's selfless, you're just there to help. So it's the white savior being self-serving versus the white ally being helpful.
Okay, that makes sense. As you said it, I interpreted it that way. When you said the terms, I kind of interpreted it that way.
Right.
And that's
it's
almost
kind of within the term, but
and
making those terms definable and distinct.
100%. And that's almost the same exact idea you get when you talk about things like feeding the homeless.
Right.
When you see people, they have to, you've probably seen it before, social media, all types of forms of media where people go out and they have to record themselves doing good deeds, right? I have to record myself giving these homeless people food.
If I'm not here and there's proof, then, I'm not doing my part.
Just do it because it's a good thing to do. Be an ally because it's a good thing to do. You don't need, there's no recognition that needs to come along with this. You're just being who you're supposed to be.
It makes us better.
Exactly. We don't need recognition for being a good person. That's the problem, is the world has made us think that way. That's one of the problems. Let me see how I correct myself. But just trying to correct those little things, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Just how we look at doing good deeds.
Right.
Simply, I think that's, if I'm understanding what you say the terms as, but I think that's an awesome terms to put out in the world for sure. Appreciate that.
So I, as a white person, have privilege.
Yes.
You don't have the same opportunities just because of your color, and I have more just because of my color.
Yes,
Can you speak to how you've seen white privilege on your behalf? Because me, I just know I have it. I don't know how it actually is in the grand scheme of things.
Well, I mean, obviously there's more opportunities in job workspaces, university acceptance workspaces. We could go on for days. Incarceration rates. What else? Favoritism on the football field. There's for days we can go on. There's a plethora of things because it's, again, systemic.
Right.
It goes into so many different realms. It's deeper than we even perceive it as. But on my own realm, those are kind of just some instances that I have said. Was there a second question you had in there? I was so focused on the answer.
It was just white privilege or privilege in general.
Privilege.
Not any,
okay.
Just kind of open-ended.
I will state too that I have privilege also. Let's not take that out of context. I also have privilege. I am a male. I can see, I can walk, I can talk. I can go to the bathroom on my own. Those are things I am privileged to have. And those are things that I think we lose sight of when we're talking about just white privilege. We only try to focus on that. Everybody in this world has some form of privilege. We just tend to just focus on one form. So that's one thing I have to state too, me coming from an educated space, is that I have privilege in realms. But
that's a good point.
We have to understand that too, because I think we don't want to get into the victim realm and only trying to focus on what we don't have. Focus on what we do have. And I think I told Linda that earlier today. We need to focus on what we do have and not what we don't have sometimes. So I definitely have privilege in a lot of different spaces that I think other people don't try to focus on. So
I just felt it was important to distinguish, like, me as a white person having privilege, and even though we all have, it's the same thing as like Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter.
Yes.
It's like, since we're focused on Black Lives Matter, let's also focus on white privilege to also benefit, Black Lives Matter.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
So big one, making racist jokes. Tell a joke, you don't get the response you're looking for. Oh, I was just kidding. I'm not racist, but it was funny, right?
Right, exactly. And I think we talked about, what is her name again?
Dr. Evelyn Carter.
Dr. Evelyn Carter. So
UCLA,
right? So Jamie actually gave us an excerpt from one of her first classes, because she's holding a class right now on racism and implicit bias, just like we're somewhat doing, but it's paid for. And a quote that she said in there is, it has to deal, we try to focus on the
impact,
the intent, and we need to focus on the impact.
I believe it's impact over intent. It's not what you intended to do.
Exactly.
It's the
How
impact
it
that it
impacted
actually had. Yeah.
So nowadays we tend to focus on just the intent. So if I say that racist joke, the saying that, oh, but I'm not racist, that just negates everything that you've done through your actions. We need to focus on the impact of how that racist joke may hurt a person's feelings, if that makes sense. So nowadays we tend to just focus on the intent instead of the impact. And the impact means way more than the intent, if that makes sense. That's what she's kind of stating. So if that answered your question kind of in the right realm, but.
So I have here, we are fighting for equality, but I feel as important or equally important is equity, fairness, sharing of resources. Can you speak at all to that, or have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to understand too that we're all an interconnected group.
Right.
we're trying to just focus on one form of it, but we all work together regardless or not if we try to think that we're self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
As human beings over history, we've learned everything that we know from each other. We know nothing without a person in front of us teaching it to us. So I think focusing on equity and how we can do things together is very important.
Yeah.
So I definitely on the same exact point as you. Equity is important. We've been so focused on just equality.
Right.
We need to focus on how we can all be the best together.
How can we all share the resources to make ourselves better?
Exactly. We need to focus on that. We all need to be good together. If one, we've all heard the saying, we're only as strong as our weakest link. We need to have all strong links. We need that. So that's kind of my ideals on that.
Okay.
Too, I think so. But you could share yours too with them if you have anything extra to.
I don't think I do.
No? Okay.
I know that we need to do it. I
Yes.
just don't know how we get this group of people more food, or that person's more money for housing. Kind of raise the bar on where we draw the line as what we need as a minimum for a society.
Yes, and
so,
that itself. That's.
I mean, it's a big problem. It's a
it's a huge problem, and it's something that.
Can we even answer it?
I think we can. I think we can, but it's so irrational to even think of in the society we live today. We need people to start looking at their own perceptions of the world. Simple, but that is so, as rational as that sounds to me and you sitting here having a discussion, it's literally irrational to people to try to look at their own actions and how their actions can be portrayed by other people. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces. People aren't trying to look at how their actions affect other people. You know what I'm saying? So we need less greed, we need less selfishness, we need more selflessness. If that makes sense.
It does. And on inequity, it seems like you always hear about the impoverished, low-income Black neighborhood community.
Yes.
And because of that, if I understand it correctly, the community only sees certain avenues as a way out, whether it's drugs and their life gets destroyed, or it's the stereotypical rapper, or some other high class
basketball player,
sports, which are avenues out.
They are.
But what if you didn't have to worry about that? What if you raised the equity level, the community had resources, and those weren't the only ways? You could go to school, you could learn and trade.
Yes, 100%. We probably see a very just fundamental change within the Black culture itself.
Right.
And
all cultures,
right? Obviously,
obviously,
right. So we just having more resources for everybody in general to use, or equal resources across the lines through, state and county guidelines. Or lines would just change the impact that on the United States, if that makes sense.
Right.
The impact of our youth, impact of everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful too, just having the same resource, especially in schools. Schools aren't even the same across county guidelines. So just having something like that would just change a lot of things, perceptions of Black individuals, even themselves in the community. So I think that's a dope question you asked me there. Appreciate it, Rob. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to do
I just have one more.
One more. Let's get one more, and we're ready for questions, y'all.
So, offensive team mascots. Get rid of them. Same thing, cultural history. We all love our sports, or most of us do.
Yes. Just like I talked about 2 weeks ago, when I talked about the implicit bias aspect. The Redskins, I think we're specifically talking about the Washington Redskins. I think they need to change it.
Yeah,
100%. I thought they needed to change it in 2012 when this was an issue, when it got brought up. Or it's probably an issue before I was born.
When the team started.
Right?
Why choose that mascot?
It's the implicit bias from whoever created the team didn't want to realize how that term is offensive. So now
understand how
it's offensive, right? So today, as we're living in today's society, it's been outlined. This term is offensive. Redskins is offensive. If you're going to keep using it as an NFL team, you're clearly stating your place. So we need to change them. It needs to be a term of whatever they change it to. It needs to be a term of endearment to just completely ratify the decision you made 80 years ago to make the team that name.
Right.
That makes sense. So
It does.
I personally feel that they need to change the name. I felt like that a while, but other people may have their own differences, their different thought processes. I think it's the same guidelines along with the Confederacy flag. It's pride. It's pride in what I had. But your pride is racist. Mm-hmm. Simple as it goes. Whatever you're prideful about was racist. So I think that needs to change. Okay. That's my personal thought. I don't know how you feel personally.
I think it needs to change. It was probably culturally insensitive to choose that name in the first place. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that were wrong. Let's take this time to change it now.
Yes.
Make it for the better.
Yes.
Whether it's, I think the recent one I saw was the Washington Justice.
Yes.
Sounds great. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a set of people or, I mean, it could be anything.
Yes.
100%. Would have a better impact.
Just something different than that.
Correct.
And don't put another racial term in there.
Yeah.
Change it to something different. But I agree with you too. All right, y'all.
Open it up?
Yes, we can open it up to them. If y'all ready to ask.
Thank you, Gerald. That's awesome. We have the first question from Vicky, and she's asking, how can we sustain this momentum? I'm worried that this current wave of protest will just fade away in the next year and nothing substantial and lasting will be accomplished.
How can we maintain? Okay. I love that question too, because I myself have been seeing a lot of people just going back to the normal life that they had before, posting pictures on Instagram of themselves, going back to the advertisements, going back to the regular old advertisements. How can we maintain? Is being diligent. It's 100%. We have to keep going. There's really no easy answer to that. We have to keep pushing. There can't be, the thoughts that pop in our head that maybe the movement has came to a point where, we've succeeded. We won't see success until we see real systemic change. So until we see that change, we have to keep going. It's going to get tiring. I'm just saying it right now. It's going to get tiring. It's not going to be what we want to do every day. Waking up and trying to advocate for better lives for Black and brown skinned individuals across the world is going to be a tiring fight because we have so much ignorance in this world. We have so much lack of wanting to educate ourselves. We have so much stacked up against us. But just knowing that you have groups of people like this, I have groups of people like y'all to sit here and listen. I have people like Rob to sit here and listen and want to go out in the world and spread the knowledge is just inspiration to, keep the fight going. So I think answering that in the longest but shortest way possible is we have to keep going. Simple but complicated, if that makes sense.
And if we don't do anything to inspire change, people are still going to get killed and nothing will change. So by maintaining and just keep investing that energy, mm-hmm. We could inspire change and things will get better.
Yes, I can agree with that too, 100%.
Okay, great. And Vicky has another question for you. Vicky, I'm going to ask to unmute you, and then you can ask him this one on your own. Are you there, Vicky?
I don't know whether I am or not. Am I?
Yes, you are.
Ah, okay. So what was my question? I'm sorry. Why don't you go ahead and pose the question, if you will?
Oh.
Who's moderating? Okay, well, what do you think about reparations?
Reparations for 400 years of slavery?
Yes.
I personally don't see how we could go about giving reparations to the amount of Black people in this country. I'm not going to lie to you, Vicky. I've been thinking about that for a long time, especially being a recent college graduate. I want reparations for my student loans. That'd be awesome to have. But I couldn't see us having a form of reparations at this point. I don't know how you could make up for 400 years of slavery, 60 years of Jim Crow era, and whatever's going on now. I don't see how you could do it. I think really the reparations we're going to have is seeing change systemically. That's where we're going to see our reparations from, is the change that we're going to see within the systems, within mass incarcerations. That'll be our reparations. We can't look at our reparations the same as we can look at Native Americans, for example, they have their sets of land. We're not going to get our 60 acres and a meal. It's not happening. You know, there's not enough land in this nation to cover up the amount of Black people to have 60 acres and a meal. But I think we just need to focus on what, you know, maybe what the form of reparations is going to be. It's not going to be monetary, and it's not going to be land. It's not going to be an animal. It's not going to be the same as our Native Americans, if that makes sense, Vicki, if I'm putting it in terms.
But it could be things like tax deductions and things like that.
It could be things like that. It could be. It definitely could be. But then you have the other side of people saying that we're getting, you know, as just because I'm black skinned, I'm getting a break. You know, if we're really trying to truly reach equity and equality, we just need to see equality across the lines for everybody in all forms.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gerald, Karen is next up with her question.
Perfect.
So I guess I'd like to bring it local. I moved from San Francisco a few years ago, and, you know, I knew it'd be less diverse, but, you know, I've been really shocked by the history of the state and really the lack of diversity. And yeah, I mean, to me, you know, living in San Francisco, the diversity was a real important part of the richness of all of our lives. And I'm just wondering any thoughts you have about things we can do even as individuals to just, you know, make this place a more attractive place to be for people of color. I know that's a kind of a big question, but I'm interested in any ideas.
No, I love it too. I love it, Karen. I love the question. Because, you know, I've been trying to figure that out myself, living here for 3 years. You know, how can
you don't want to be the only one.
Right. No, exactly. I've been feeling the same way. You know, Ashland, obviously, the history of it, it's very white. It's very white. There's, you know, culture, restaurant-wise out here too, there's a lack of maybe cultures for, you know, Black people. So maybe that's a way we could have something like that. Maybe have a restaurant they have a soul food part of their menu. You know, if we could add that in. Just having options. Maybe some of the clubs have a hip hop night. So, you know, things like that align with our culture. You know, because when I came out here originally 3-4 years ago, I expected maybe I was going to see something a little different. And just like you, I was shocked. There was a lack of kind of where's the stuff that I'm used to? Where's the representation of people that look like me? Where's the food that I'm used to eating? So maybe just starting there, food, music, then it'll expand the realms from there. Because I think we have to start small first before we can talk about the bigger things. But you know, those small things, introducing things like that, will just be awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we can't change the world overnight. So I think that's really good. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I didn't answer it, you know, maybe in a way that could have been better for you, but I tried.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Thank you.
Hi, we have a question from Louise, but I don't see her any longer to unmute her. Louise, which computer are you on?
Yeah,
there you are. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Louise. You're next.
Yeah. So, Gerald, you were making comments about rioting, and
Yes.
I just would you make a distinction between rioting and protesting, since we have a long history in this country of nonviolent protest?
Yes.
And Lewis was one of those kind of giants of that. And I think right now in our political moment, some people are equating those two. So
Yes.
could you make some comments about that, please?
Yes, absolutely, Luis. I appreciate that too. Just the distinction between both of them. So, yes, like I said earlier, I feel like media is spinning the idea of a peaceful protest, which in its format is peaceful. We're marching in the streets. People are marching in the streets. People are having sit-ins, like we've seen for years. People are boycotting the buses. They did that years ago. And then the distinction between something like that is peaceful, it's quiet, it has meaning behind it, organized, right?
Like with Divine, I've been on a couple of direct actions, and they were organized. There was a set of guidelines that you followed.
Boom.
It had more impact because of that.
You have first responders.
Yeah.
You have officials there that are lawyers that are on call. And the distinction between that is the organization, essentially, like you just said, Rob. Riots have no organization. They're there just to destroy. The reason behind them is to destroy stuff, is to steal, is to loot, right? They have, I think that's the biggest distinction, is the organization and the intent behind both of them. Rioting is meant to cause destruction, and it has no organization. I think that's my best answer I can give you there, Luis, if I'm maybe understanding that right.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think at this point, especially with Portland, the way those two have been strategized, the majority of the time that people have been on the street has been peaceful, and then you get about 11 o'clock at night, and then whoever's provoking rioting provokes the rioting, and that's what people see. So I just think it's really critical when we're doing our own conversations with people. That's one of the things that we can do as an ally, I think, is to speak to those distinctions. So thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Okay, Gerald, next up is Linda. She has a question for you.
Perfect.
Hi, Gerald and Rob. Thanks for putting this on.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, I wanted to bring awareness or discussion to some verbiage. I appreciated that new term. I hadn't heard, the white saviorship. And then I'm hearing this term ally. And then I've also heard the term co-conspirator. And I'm curious how an ally can become a co-conspirator in your view. And I'm also curious about let's see, there was another term. Well, let's just start with that, and then I'll review my question.
Okay, I'm gonna let Rob attack this right off the bat.
Okay, so I say I'm a white ally, and would you agree that me holding up a solidarity fist is not okay? As an example, I've heard mixed reactions on that. Okay. Well, for example, I've heard mixed reactions on me holding up, the solidarity fist, because I have not experienced the hatred and repression involved in that symbol of me doing that. So that might be me culturally appropriating something that was inherently Black as a symbol of unity and, resistance. And so me taking things out of context might become me being a negative influence in the movement.
Right, okay.
So then I am doing these series of small things like that is then making me not truly in line with what we're fighting for. So I'm becoming a conspirator in a small sense, but small things build up and then become.
Okay.
So if I understand it correctly, things like this are what contribute to not necessarily, it's not that you're not an ally, but you're not quite in line with the message. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You mean if you are, if you're a co-conspirator, you're not in line with the message, or if you're an ally, you're not in line?
Co-conspirator.
Right, yeah.
A co-conspirator isn't necessarily in line with the ally?
Yes, I think that's what he's explained. So you can really, I think what you can boil it down to is actions speak louder than your words.
Yes.
You could say you're an ally, but what are you doing on the outsides to, really align with it? Are you making sure that you're not out here culturally appropriating? You could love the culture, but claiming stuff as your part of your culture, you learned it on your own, instead of really giving people the roses when they're alive is another good example, another term. But I think if I'm understanding it right.
Yeah, or another example is I attend Black Lives Matter protests, but I'm still telling the racist jokes, you know, among my white friends. I'm still perpetuating stereotypes. I'm still discriminating out of the workplace, you know, whatever it is. I might be identifying as an ally, but I'm not doing the steps that I need to do outside of that specific, you know, event.
Yeah. So aligning action with deed with word.
Yes.
Word, action, all of that.
Yeah.
And I think the second part of my question, it segues from that in the sense of, you talked about equality, you talked about equity, and I'm also hearing justice. You know, people are asking about reparations. Justice is perhaps even a reformation of the system, or a new system that arises that encompasses both of those. Do you speak to that?
As far as justice. So if I'm understanding, are you asking about just the reform aspect of the justice part?
Yeah, I mean, does justice incorporate equality and equity? You know, I've heard justice is sort of a broader umbrella, like how you were saying, you know, reparations, there really isn't such a thing until the whole thing is reformed.
Yes.
That's going to be the reparation.
So yes, and if I'm understanding it right, I think one of the pieces of that too is when we're talking about justice, we can talk about the incarceration rates and those who are white individuals not getting the same time frames as those who are black individuals. That makes sense for the same crimes, say petty crimes, or we see people in jail who are black-skinned who get higher incarceration rates for crimes that are less severe as some of the crimes of white individuals commit. So that's what we're talking about too for justice, because you see the rate of, or the time frames that are placed upon individuals who are black skinned just happen to be longer than those who are white. So we need equality in the justice system to then reach that point of equity for everybody.
Higher bail rate, or bail.
Higher bail rates.
Yeah.
It's just so many aspects that are systemic. They're through the systems, and it becomes systematic through the systemic. If I answered it correctly, I'm sorry if I'm going around the point.
Oh no, it's just a point of discussion more than a specific question. It's just a way to keep dialoguing. So there's no right or wrong in my mind. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next, we have a question from Charlotte.
Hi, thanks for letting me in. You know, you talked about reparation. What's your feeling about reconciliation, like what they did in South Africa and that was successful in Rwanda? Almost like if the government could form some sort of a platform for a reconciliation.
I think that's just an awesome idea. Just as you posited out, and because I haven't thought about that, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I've thought about reconciliation. I think the reconciliation aspect comes also from inside, because we have to reconcile with what our ancestors have done, right? And for reconciliation really to happen and on that type of level, we'd have to have a government system which is fueled by these systemic purposes or systemic racist ideals. That system itself would have to be able to reconcile. The people in that system would have to be reconciled first before we get to that point. So I guess I haven't really thought about it because I'm thinking so micro within the American system and thinking about how politicians, I can't even conceptualize politicians that are, biased, that have these implicit biases, that are bigots. I can't even conceptualize them making the reconciliation themselves to then want to make the change within the system that we currently live in. So when I think about something like that in South Africa, or if you said South Africa, I'm sorry if I'm spacing on a point, but the people that are in power there first would have to make the conscious choice to want to see the change for the people that they are in power over, if that makes sense. So I guess I haven't even conceptualized that point because I can't even see their actions changing on points like this, if that makes sense.
I think for America, we could, it's going to take us doing these protests and being activists, but if we can be calling our senators and people in Congress and, you know, influencing them as their constituents, then we can maybe change that policy or start reforming that whole thing. So it's going to take us to basically a call to action to get our Congress people and people in power, senators, to actually make that change.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we can see some reconciliation.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And Louise added that there are cities which are creating spaces for reconciliation at the local level.
Nice.
So it's local, not yet federal. Okay, I love that.
Vicky wanted to recommend a book to everyone. The new
Jim Crow. Yep.
Michelle Alexander.
Great book. Absolute great resource. I definitely recommend reading that. That's about mass incarceration in America today. So everything that I'm talking about, the new Jim Crow is going to speak to.
Great. Charlotte, did you have another question?
The name of the book?
Oh, you
The
got
new
it.
Jim Crow.
The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Fabulous. So I don't see any other questions here, so I have one for you. We're just about ready to wrap up, but I do have a quick question for you. What is our call to action today, Gerald and Rob? Do you have something that, I mean, you've made a lot of suggestions, but give us one that we could just sink our teeth into today and go do today.
We could talk about what we learned yesterday, what you identify as.
Yeah.
I can talk a lot.
I was actually thinking today, even though I was nervous and like not quite prepared, I'm acting as a representative of people of color. And my call to action today is getting involved and being here. Unwinding prejudice and implicit bias, like it starts with you. So maybe that's your call to action. You know, just find something small and then work with it, educate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then through that education, you will get involved, just like I did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out who you are as a person. And then, you know, I started to learn about Gerald through this process, and we came together and we broke down, you know, biases and prejudices and whatever it is. So I think a good call to action today is looking at yourself, getting yourself educated, and finding out how you can get involved.
Here's just a little homework assignment that Jamie had us do yesterday that I'd appreciate if y'all did too. I just need 5, describe yourself in 5 words. So I am 5 times. I need 5 different things that you identify with. And next time you see me in a while, I'm here daily. So it's just like this, identity and bias. So all these lines right here, where all this I am a black man. I am an uncle. I am a son of a white woman. I am an ex-athlete. I am a nice person. Those are 5 that I can just think of off the top of my head. A few of those I put on there, but just things like that. And then you can look at those 5 I ams and understand how those 5 I ams can give you privilege in this world. That could be your first start, your first call to action. And then understanding, maybe picking apart within your friend groups. You can do the same exact thing. When you get in a friend group, ask your friends to do that. Pick it apart and understand why those 5 things, how you get privilege from those 5 things. So I think that's, you know, a good example of a call to action that they can do, something actually they can do. You know, because some people,
tangible.
You know, telling people just to educate themselves, maybe they don't know how. You know, maybe that's right there. Boom.
Yeah.
Great.
But yeah.
Louise said she is so grateful to both of you for this presentation, as I think I speak for the entire group. And I will tell you that I am still wanting to put a Black Lives Matter sign at my house. I just have yet to go get one. But I want to know, Gerald, how does it make you feel when you see those?
Oh, it makes me feel accepted, welcomed in the community I am. You know, when I first came out here, I almost, my focus was pinpointed on every house that I seen that had a Black Lives Matter sign on it. I was like, wow, I mean, because when I first came here, I felt, being around this many white people, I felt unwelcome. So I just saying it about bluntly, I felt unwelcomed at times, even though I'm white myself. I just felt like I didn't belong at times. But when you see those signs, you understand that there is people in this community that do not align with the bigger social construct that this community kind of has represented or been represented by for so long. So when I get to see those things, when I see the signs, it just makes me understand that no matter where I'm at, no matter how ignorant the town I'm in or the history of the town I'm in, that there is still people out here that align with my mindset about my people and want to see the best for everybody, regardless. So when I see those signs, that's essentially how I feel when I see them, Jamie. How do you feel, Rob?
I feel like the more people that speak out, the more acceptance, white or black or brown or whatever. If you're speaking out against a common cause for good, like, it makes everything feel safer, like you're a part of a community, and it's only going to build us up.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, that's fabulous. Does anyone else have a final question? We're just about ready to wrap up here.
And if you heard Rob right there, he said, we, not us. It's about we, not us. Vicky's got one.
I have one. I'm really disturbed by how the media, or part of the media, is wanting to destroy Black Lives Matter, and the group is losing their credibility, and it is so sad how one section of the United States are saying, well, Black Lives is Antifa is no good, and Black Lives. What's your opinion of that? How they're losing ground?
Yeah, I think that is just willful ignorance. Simply put, people are choosing not to focus on what the movement itself is about. We have a leader in this country who is making ignorant statements that his following will align with, and they take that as the capital T truth. And people aren't understanding that that's his lowercase t truth. That's his truth himself that he understands the world as, and these moments going on. So I think overall the issue with that stuff is just people not wanting to educate themselves on the true point of a message. No matter or not if you agree with it morally, right, in your heart, you still have to take the time to understand something from another person's point of view, or else you're continuing to perpetuate the ignorance over time. So I think it's just like I said, it's willful ignorance. I'm sad to see it personally. Just like you, I'm disgusted to see people choosing to be ignorant, choosing not to look at the real point of the real message from the Black Lives Matter saying. And people are also trying to debunk the message with this all lives matter and the blue lives matter sayings. So it's overall an ignorant world we live in. We have a lot of people that choose not to educate themselves, and they choose to just go with what they learned from the past instead of trying to learn new things. As much knowledge as there is in the world, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink it. So, if that answers your question right, Charlotte.
Great. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. We've run out of time, but this talk is far from over. We will definitely continue this discussion. And as a matter of fact, next Wednesday, our Wellness Wednesday speaker is CJ Thomas. She is a young Black woman who is going to present supporting people of color in their wellness spaces. And this will be a really great presentation as well. So I hope to see all of you there. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Rob. This is not goodbye. This is just until we chat again. Thank you, everyone, so much, and we will be in touch.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. See you
My
later.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
Great to see everyone. Bye. Thank you. Great questions.
Bye.
Thanks for participating. Hi, Marilyn. Bye, Charlotte. Bye, Linda. Bye, Jane.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye, Louise. Bye, Nay. Thank you, everyone. Great job.